Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. And with Scump letting his thoughts be known on the state of ranked play here in Call of Duty Vanguard, a lot of the pros have also revealed their frustrations about the way the CDL is operating the format this year. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe if you are new as always, I'd greatly appreciate it. The YouTube icon loves it as well. Really up to the channel. Thank you very much indeed for doing that one. Firstly, this in the Minnesota guys, business mode says attach. I think there was some sort of content day going on with the Minnesota guys yesterday. Attach's suit is looking pretty good. Not sure about Major Maniak sleeves, but I think Joey Dubsy was on Taylor duty. Didn't really work out all that well for the boys. But let's dive into the rank play discussion, because this comes out from Crone yesterday. Right now, this is not the skill rank, I guess that's what SR stands for, goes right now. So if you're a 0, you're a contender 5. That's pretty brutal, but it goes all the way from 0 all the way up to 3,400, I believe is the highest, up in Challenger 1. I think you can actually get higher than this right now. I think I saw someone at 4,000, but that's probably not legit. And the reason it's not legit is because there are some issues with ranked play right now. For example, I believe if you're losing a game and just at the end of the game you alt F4 and just quit the game, that you won't lose any skill points. So all these things are often, when the ranked play comes out, there are ways around losing skill rating, and other people were saying that they're getting 15 for a win and losing 60 for a loss. Maybe that's to kind of compensate for the fact that some people are just not losing any at all by using these kind of exploits. But that's why I guess it's in a beta. Traeger's certainly working on some fixes for this stuff, but in general the skill rating was a really good idea to actually be implemented here. You have an elo based number, and well, whatever your number is will refer to exactly where you should be: specialist, advanced, expert, elite, master, or all the way up in Challenger, which are just the top players in the world, at least in theory. Now there has been some questions as to whether you should actually be able to get placed straight into Challenger. I would argue probably not. I think the max you should really get placed is master, and then you should have to work your way up through normal games, because it feels like just playing 5 or 10 placement games, whatever it is, and getting put straight into the highest division with only the best players in the world seems like the sample size may bias that to some degree. So I feel like it should just be restricted to people who earn it over time. But Trek have done what they want to do. There's also are some changes to be considered, but Clayster and a lot of the pros generally pretty happy about it. It's been a long time coming to actually have a playlist in the game the pros enjoy playing. Pubs really not it in this game, right? Rank play is the only other thing they can play outside of 8s. And as well, Clayster, it's been a long time since I've been allowed to enjoy a COD play just casually for 8 hours and actually have fun about it. Ranked is finally scratching an itch. So good to see on one side of things. Of course, look, there are also problems with it as well, as Clay says. Just played a 4 stack of cheaters in ranked. That's the thing. I mean, these cheaters, no shame at all, just all cheating on the same team. Unfortunate stuff, but that's the thing. There's no anti-cheat. There is anti-cheat in Warzone right now. Hasn't arrived yet, the Ricochet or whatever it's called, into actually regular multiplayer. That's pretty tough, but still, I think Trek are working on some other solutions as well to some of the other issues that ranked play has. For example, as Chrome points out, issues Trek are working on, penalising players who leave. That's the top priority. That's the thing. Right now, 3v4s, they happen on a relatively regular basis, is my understanding. Also, losing SR when winning or when a team quits. That's obviously not ideal. Adjustments for how much skill ranking you're actually winning or losing, depending on when you win or lose, all this type of stuff. Also, some rifle restrictions being looked at and displaying the skill division and tier info better. Because some people were wondering, should you actually be able to see the number of the skill ranking of the other players in the lobby? Which, it's quite an interesting question, because in World War II you could. Someone would join, you could see if they're a 2100 or 2500 or whatever, you could see their number. Now, in this game you can't see that, I believe. Now, of course, you can see your own one, and in fairness, in a game like Valorant or Counter-Strike, you don't get to see the number associated with your ability, even though there is a number, I'm pretty sure, in the code behind the scenes. You don't get to see it for the other players, though. So maybe not the biggest deal in the world, but it's something some people at least were discussing. And another thing that has been discussed is, okay, even though right now with the games, because the skill ratings aren't necessarily too indicative of how good players are because of the ability to, just dip from the game, not lose any points, the matches at the top ends, with the Challenger players, are not necessarily just Challenger, Pro, Amateur, top amateur level players. There's other players getting into those games as well, which is what Scump talks about here in a second. But in general, he's very happy with it. Rank play is fun, feels a lot like last year's, but it's a good time. He gives it a W at the end of the day, and he goes on to explain this comment here actually in just a second, because as Colt says, SO is nothing like last year at all. So technically, this system is much better than last year, but as he said, the matches still feel around the same skill level at the top, though, is what I meant. So maybe part of that is due to people actually in, Scump's kind of tier level in the Challenger side, not necessarily being there on merit, right, due to these other issues in the game. So maybe when that gets figured out, hopefully the games at the very top of the ranked play ladder are just pros and top amateurs, as they were in World War II, which was always a good time. And look, there's some other issues as well. Scump's playing ranked right here on Gravity Hardpoint, trying to have a good time. The game blue screens, that's unfortunate. Not necessarily ranked play's fault, but in fairness, I think some people were saying that the scanner repair issue has happened way more often lately since this arrived into the game. So maybe there are some additional problems that their world Trek need to figure out. Of course, it's not even Trek's job in theory, right? It should be Sledgehammer's job, but it's just apparently Trek's the only one who can actually do anything competitive related any good at all. So they're kind of on duty to figure this one out. This also I thought was just kind of funny real quick. Rambo Ray, of course, pro player back in the day, played with Scump in like 2012, way back in the Optic days. He should have got on the Ray shot. It's so good. You know, the sarcasm maybe being sensed right here with that one, right? Rambo never really known for his straight shooting, let's just say, known for his more mind about the game, which of course is what Optic need him for as the current coach of the lineup.
I don't even know what rank I'm about to get put in. It's not going to be good. It's not going to be good. $50 for the L? You might be in copper, dude. What did I get? What is that? Challenger 4? Oh! Oh! Wait, is that good? Is that good? Is Challenger the highest one? Oh!
Before we go into some of the frustrations real quick with the pros on the state of the format right now and the way things are being determined, just wanted to mention this real quick that I'm pretty sure Roll Professional noticed from way back in, 3 years ago here on the Reddit. So we looked yesterday, right, that Scump had called Illy one of the top 3 teammates of all time. Quite the statement. Now, Crim actually says this, right, back in 3 years ago, there was kind of noticed that a Smalls asking, are you and Scump really locked into Optic, as you said? This when they're part of Optic, I guess, during the Black Ops 4 days. And yeah, until Illy turns 18 and I get jobs, I won't even be mad. Kid's a beast. He won't give me his DPI though. Start talking about, I guess, mouse settings or whatever. Talking about the keyboarding stuff, pretty funny. But I mean, yeah, it turns out that Crimsix, honestly, a kind of similar thing has happened in reality, where Crimsix effectively got dropped for Dashy this time round, I suppose you could say, when it was possible he could have been part of Optic Texas, right? But Dashy comes in when the merger goes through. But yeah, Illy does end up on Optic after all. But I guess to Crimsix's credit, he has won a world championship with Illy in the interim, right? But he knew several years ago that Illy was going to be this guy. That's even before they teamed together, right? Or people even really expected Illy to be the next top talent, in fairness, because people are talking about Illy for a long time. But especially after Simp did the crazy stuff he did in Black Ops 4, there was of course talk about Illy as well, and understandably so. He's now world champion as well. Let's dive into some of these concerns with the format then. So first year for Major Maniak, I think, was kind of the main tweet that he said kind of at the latter end of last week. I'm gonna be the one to say it because no one else really was talking too much about this. There was of course some discussion. Something has to change, especially with the vetoes. 2 controls where the winner of the coin flip picks every time, 4 hard points and 4 search and destroys, meaning 0 outplay potential on top of an already inconsistent format, followed by online matches that actually matter. So a lot of frustrations really coming out of the Minnesota camp that they were 9-13 here in map count with the 2-3 record, but their 2-3 record was against some top teams. They played a really difficult schedule this stage compared to what the expectation might be on average for who you're going to have to play against. Now, well, look, in fairness, they were a game 5 round 11 for beating Seattle Surge, right? If if accuracy doesn't clutch that crazy 1 versus 2, and if they win that series, they're 3-2. They qualify for the winners bracket, no problem at all. As it turns out, though, because they did it on map count to kind of deal with the tiebreakers, Minnesota find themselves out of there, despite the fact that maybe they're probably not the 9th best team or the 10th best team in the league. They're probably more like the 8th or the 7th, but just the way the bracket worked out, they didn't play the teams that maybe other teams got easier wins up against. For example, if they'd have played Paris this stage, they'd have probably been a winners. That's just kind of how it goes. Other teams got that luxury. Now, of course, there is some frustration then about those online games actually meaning so much in terms of qualification for the major and the bracket that these teams are going to have. At the same time, though, at least all teams do go, right? And if you start and lose, at least you still have a chance, rather than only 8 teams attending, as it was going to be going into the season. But of course, the main thing he's discussing here is the vetoes right now, which I think has been really the main complaint. Just because the team who wins the coin flip, because there's literally a coin flip that happens before every single map occurs. I don't know how they do this coin flip, maybe on Google, or if there's an actual real coin the referee's using, I don't know. Probably not. But still, they decide one team gets Team A, one team gets Team B, and that determines how the vetoes go. If you're Team A, you have something of an advantage in vetoes, especially because you get to choose what control map you play. And right now there's only 2. So usually it would be that one team gets to ban, the other team gets to ban, one is left over. Therefore, there's no real advantage in having the Team A, the benefit of the coin flip, apart from, I believe, getting to choose defense first in that control. This time the advantage is much greater. If you're a team like FaZe, for example, they don't really like Gather 2 control at all, but they really like Tuscan, suits them very well. So if they lose the coin flip, they pretty much have to play Gather 2, whatever the other team wants to play, and if they win it, they get to pick Tuscan. That's a massive deal in the course of a series, especially with how important the control is in swinging a series right as that kind of third map. And of course, going into this major, because they have the number 1 seed, they will in pretty much every single match they play be able to just straight up pick the control they want, which seems just way too ridiculous, right? It's really been a very rare occasion. We've only had 2 maps going on for that third game mode in a very long time. And as Clay says in the reply, playing 4-4-2 with the coin flip instead of 5-5-3, where do we go wrong, right? Because now we're playing, 4 maps in hardpoint, 4 maps in surge, 2 maps in control. We used to have 5-5-3 in those game modes, and now we've got the coin flip being even more impactful. Simp was not happy about this at all, right? And this kind of, it seems like kind of the frustrations were creeping into some degree with that Seattle Surge camp the last couple of weeks or so, because I think they lost a couple of coin flips in the last couple of series. That means they had to play the control maps that the opponent wanted to play, not what they wanted to play, and gives a pretty serious advantage in the series, right? It was kind of funny, really, because last year, around about this time, we were talking about the coin flip league, because I think maybe it was when Los Angeles Guerrillas beat Atlanta FaZe, and there was all this talk about, okay, this game's just so random, Black Ops Cold War, just the most random game ever, like it's just 50-50 every single time. Some people were just saying coin flip league, tweeting out the gifs on the timeline. This year we actually do have a coin flip league, but in a different way, where if you win the coin flip, you get a massive advantage in terms of the vetoes for the series. Thankfully for the major, this is kind of alleviated, but it seems to me the combination of the coin flip frustrations, right, and the randomness that is involved in that, and the online era in general, and the fact that the teams have to play random opposition, and the fact that like the tiebreakers don't really make all that much sense when you have to consider the strengths of schedule that some teams have is greater than others. It kind of compounds into a situation where probably these online matches are more random than we would like them to be, and there are problems with the competitive integrity in the state of the league right now. So definitely intrigued to your perspective on that one down below. I think really the solution to this is we need the third control map. To my understanding, Berlin is very viable if the spawns are changed. There might also be other options. We were kind of hoping Casablanca could be an option, right? I'm sure the pros, as soon as the major is over, I'm sure they're going to trial it. The problem is, like, there's only a few days between the end of the first major and the start of major 2, so I'm not really sure they're going to have all that much time to make that many changes. They might have to trial them this coming week, pre-major, just to make sure things can actually change. Hopefully something happens soon though, because it is getting frustrating seeing all this stuff on the timeline, and understandably so. This also from Deserter, wanted to mention as we kind of close down the video, the power rankings they have after the major 1 qualifiers, after week 3. I think honestly these are relatively reasonable, but this is kind of aligned to what I was saying, that Minnesota Rokkr, based on their results and performances, like they might well be the 7th or 8th team in the game right now. Like you could also maybe have them like, well, below that, but they came, I'm pretty sure, 10th in terms of their seeding, but just as it turns out, they had a really difficult set of matches compared to some of the other teams that got arguably easier wins in their games. But yeah, FaZe number 1. I think honestly this is kind of reasonable, like just given that Surge and Ultra have certainly dropped off the last week or so, FaZe kind of move in by default to that number 1 spot. They're 5-0 this stage, no brainer there. Thieves right behind them. This is what's most exciting to me, is that LA Thieves, they're right there or thereabouts, potentially number 1. Certainly in hardpoint right now, Thieves could be argued to be number 1. Very important game modes. If they could get it together in the other modes as well, these guys honestly can make a crazy run this tourney. London in 3, I think is kind of optimistic, but in fairness, they did beat Seattle Surge, and they beat Optic, so I think you can certainly justify Ravens being the number 3 team in the game right now, which is kind of incredible to think about. They did lose to Los Angeles Guerrillas, the only match they lost this stage, or this major cycle, at least for the qualifiers, and that they actually play LAG again in the first round, which isn't exactly the greatest matchup for London compared to the other teams they could have been playing. Surge down in 4th. I think even some people would say the argument that, okay, maybe Optic should be 4th now. These two teams haven't matched up as of yet. Certainly if they matched up right now, I would favour Optic over Seattle, but maybe after the first few weeks, you maybe have to slightly say Seattle's ahead, and maybe you don't want to drop them down all that much. Toronto down in 6th is kind of a surprising, but a very difficult week for them. And other teams, for example, London and Optic improving massively. Like down in 6th is pretty crazy to think about. They were the number 1 team, no doubt about it, coming out of the Kickoff Classic. But I mean, still, everything's changing very quickly indeed in this league. The only team that's a stonewall is Paris Legion down there in 12th. And well, New York not far behind them there in 11th. We'll talk about them later today. But very much intrigued to your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy it, hit a like button. Tells you YouTube gods, this is a good video. I'd just like you should see it as well. And help grow the competitive Call of Duty community. Thank you as always. Take care. And I will see you next time.